Good morning. No, this is not my first cup of coffee. I'm probably 5 cups in, and it's early. But sadly, I wake up early, and I start guzzling coffee right away. Hope you're doing well and had a good weekend. We had an interesting weekend. My wife was still kind of laid up with her back and doing better. Going to be getting out some today. We got out a little bit each day of the weekend, but she was being very careful. I was keeping a close arm to help her and that kind of thing. But yesterday we had an interesting situation. My middle daughter came to me with an issue. She was getting a ton of emails being subscribed to all different kinds of things that she had not done. 40 or 50 emails just all of a sudden from about noon on Saturday until yesterday. And because of my experience, I mean, I've been in computers, work support, involved in that for over 30 years. And I've had a lot of cybersecurity training. She, came and says, "What's going on with this?" And I get calls from family, and I appreciate it. It's nice to be a little bit useful because I'm not good at a lot of other things. Nobody calls me about their car. That's for sure. Nobody calls me and says, "Hey, we're putting, in a new sink. Can you help do the plumbing?" No, I'm not that guy. But I am the guy you call if you need help with an email or some software, or I got this, weird unsolicited email, So I'm that guy for my family and some of my friends and that kind of thing. And that's fine. I'm happy to do it. So my daughter says, "I got all these emails and I didn't subscribe to any of them." And she's scrolling down through it. And it's funny. She said, "I got one. This looks like a reservation to a hotel. It's got to be fake, right?" And I look at her phone, take a look at the email. And it's from Marriott, from a hotel in Texas, in Houston, Texas. And I said, "It kind of looks legit," and I check it out. And I'm going to give you, at the end of this, some of my basic get away from hack suggestions. I'll give you a short list of things that I watch out for, that I've learned. And trust me, hackers, these are smart people, they're devious people, they're coming up with new things all the time, so you've just got to be aware. But I'm going to give you some things to look out for later on in this. But we look at this email, and I check the address, and I said, "It looks legit." And I said, "I tell you what, let's just call the hotel," because the reservation was actually for this weekend that we were in, the 28th. And so I called the hotel, and I said, "I've got a confirmation number here, and it says my daughter made this reservation, but she did not do it." So the front desk person was very nice, and she checks, and she said, "Yeah, that was made on the morning of the 28th, which was the same day of the reservation, and they used points, which was out of my daughter's Marriott Bonvoy account, and they were staying there. They had checked in that same day. They made the reservation for the 28th, when they made the reservation and for that night. And they were in the hotel. It was a 2-day reservation using points out of my daughter's Marriott Bonvoy account." I said, "Well, she didn't do it." And they said, "Well, there's this, when they made the reservation, they might have called back in, but they put in another person that would be in the room and that would be available to check in." And they said, "Do you know this person?" And they gave me a man's name. And I said, "No." I asked my daughter, she was standing there, we had it on speakerphone. She said, "No, I don't know this person." And I said, "This guy's in your room illegally. He's, fraudulently taken my daughter's information somehow." And so they were very nice, and they escalated it up to the general manager, who again was very nice, and he gave me a number for the Marriott fraud account, and he said call them, and then we will deal with it from there. You need to get your account in order first, and they'll take care of that, and then they'll call us and we'll go from there. So I called the Marriott fraud account. They were also very nice, and they're telling us, getting all the information. They checked the numbers. They had somehow accessed her account. They had her account number. They did not, fortunately, have her credit card, so they were using another credit card, which was probably a stolen credit card. Not, can't imagine they used their own, but they did that. Marriott immediately, they said, we're refunding your points. We're canceling the reservation that is active right now. And they said, and we're, initiating an investigation into this. Of course, they ask all the preliminary questions before that, you're sure you didn't make the reservation and all that kind of thing. I said, no, that didn't happen. Then they went through and had her change everything, passwords. They added a PIN to the account. Funny story. I'm going to tell on my daughter a little bit. And she's a very smart, very capable young woman. This was an odd situation. And I'm still glad that even though she's an adult, and she could have taken care of this herself, that she comes to Dad. It makes me feel good. She came in, and then I kind of, it was fascinating to me. I wanted to see where it went. So we worked together on it. We were both on the speakerphone dealing with it, but they asked for a PIN number, and that's one of those things, you're thinking, oh, this is important. I need to use a PIN. It needs to be something I can remember. So she says, she thinks for a minute, and it's a 4-digit PIN, and she says, okay, 0123. And I thought, that's 0123. And I looked at her and I said, are you sure? I said, what? You can't use that. And the guy on the phone, very nice, very professional, says, ma'am, I don't believe we want to use that number. And then it clicks in her head, and she says, I'm sorry. She said, that's one of my best friend's birthday. And I said, your friend's birthday is January 23rd? And she said, yeah, I was just thinking that. I wasn't thinking about that this was sequential, 0, 1, 2, 3. Anyway, that's like people that use password as their password. She wasn't. This whole thing had us both kind of like, what's going on? And it was funny, and we all laughed about it quite a bit. Maybe you'll get a chuckle out of it, and she'll be mad at me for telling this story, but it was funny. So we went on past that. She came up with something else. She recreated a password, and, I encouraged her to use a password technique that I've used for quite a while. I'll tell you about that in my suggestions later, but they got it, fixed on their end. And I said, what's going to happen? I said, there's still somebody in that room. Now, obviously, they've cleared up. My daughter's not, involved in that. They knew that. But I would love to have been a fly on the wall, because I'm sure they were going to call the general manager. I don't know if just their security or if they were to call police. But I would love to have been a fly on the wall when they went knocking on that door and said, you've got to leave. And I'd love to have seen what those people were doing. I have a feeling if they went to all of that trouble, and there's a possibility that they did all those subscriptions and everything to throw off the trail of this. I mean, because that reservation was hidden in the middle of like 50 emails that were just random crazy. Now that seems like a lot of effort to me for 2-night stays at a Courtyard hotel in Houston. But I don't know. I don't know what these people think. I don't know what, they have a computer program that could have done that easily. But it was still strange. I feel like something probably illegal. They weren't just there for a bachelor party weekend or going away weekend, or just, hey, I want to go to Houston for the night. So I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that. But it was interesting. And we talked about it quite a bit afterwards, wondering what was going on. I'd love to get a follow-up, but I'm sure Marriott's not going to call and say, oh, they were doing this. I wish they would. It would be great. So anyway, we went through a lot of things, and she changed her password on her email. She changed passwords on bank accounts, credit cards, that kind of thing. Probably creating a new email because she's had it for quite a while. And, I had some of those suggestions. Pardon me for the interruption. We're going to take a break here. I realized this video went on way too long. I ended up talking about 20 minutes, and I don't want to put you through that. So I'm going to cut it off here, and then we'll post the other half tomorrow or the next day with my tips for how to maybe protect yourself a little bit from online hackers and that kind of thing. But hope you enjoyed the video and our little Marriott reservation story. And take care of yourself. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.